For this video, I want to give a quick overview one more time as to why we would want to create a different version of the dialogue script. So far we've used the simple dialogue, and the problem with the simple dialogue was that we'd have to have a separate instance of a game object, the panel, and the script for every single dialogue that we want to have in the project. And that's very limiting, because we want to be able to chain together pieces of dialogue, and we'd like to have the dialogue manager, the script that's running it, basically we just want to have one of those in the scene, and we want to be changing out the conversations that are being played. And we also want a nice way to keep track of that conversation information so that if somehow the game object gets corrupted, we don't lose all of that conversation. So what we're going to do is learn about scriptable objects. And so we're going to end up with something like this. This is a scriptable object. So a scriptable object is an asset, and we are going to download a scriptable object factory that's going to allow us to have a really easy way. We'll do the create menu, and then we'll come down, and then we'll have this new option show up. So we're going to have to import the scriptable object factory so that we can get this menu option to be able to pick the scriptable objects that we create. So the goal is that we want to have the same exact type of dialogue logic, except we want to do two additional things. We want to make sure that, if we look real quick here, we want to make sure that we have those same options. Is there another panel to open? Is there a button that's going to open this? And here in this case, this is the conversation, and we could populate it with a scriptable object. We could just have dragged one of those up here or selected it. But instead, in this case, because we want to think about when we come into a scene, what's going to cause this to be open. Either we can click show on start. In this case, I wanted to have this idea of a little trigger. So here we just have a collider, and it has a little script on it, and the script allows us to have basically two things. The script is on this collider, on this game object, and it is basically allowing us to find the dialogue manager in the scene. And so we'll be able to always have the same dialogue manager run any kind of multiple scripts triggered by multiple things. And then we get to pass along the conversation that we want to have associated with this trigger. So it's a super simple script. And then one other thing we'll see is that we will have this text be typed in one character at a time. So once again, we want the ability to chain together conversations, and in order to do that, we want to have our conversation data separated out, not on the script itself, the simple dialogue. Okay, so let's take a real quick look here and see how this works. Okay, so once again, we'll have some additional panels, but this dialogue prefab, it's exactly the same one from before, and it basically hid itself because it doesn't show on start, whereas the option panel had that hide show panel script on it, and we don't want that to show on the start. It'll be getting opened by the conversation that gets triggered. Okay, so let's see. So let's have her walk. Okay, so she hit that trigger, and then what we see is that we have the conversation, and we can step through the conversation, and now we have a choice. And this is called the choice panel, and we'll come in next. For the next module, we'll look at the choice panel. But the choice panel is basically giving us a script that allows us to, the scripts, oh, I'm sorry, here we go. The choice panel is allowing us to configure things to be executed on the button, and also to save some data. So we're going to be saving dictionary data, which means it's two pieces of information. So basically we'll have a little script on each one of these buttons, and that can be configured. So we would have multiples of these choice panels, with each one configured to have the buttons deciding the way this one, this one that says decide to leave, the way that's configured is that when that button is clicked, it's going to find the option panel. So here we're able to select game objects, so the option panel, and then for the option panel, I can see any of the components. Hide show panel, I want to be opening that panel. And then the same thing is we're going to actually have it close the panel that it is contained in. Okay, so if we say we want to leave, then this logic made that panel close, and it also made this panel open, and then we're back to our button options. Okay, so the goal is we want to be able to really have infinite configurability for having branching, kind of nested conversations, and we want to keep it as simple as possible. So we need to do these scriptable objects. So we'll stop this video, and then the next one we'll get into the scriptable objects.